Are some native plant circles circling so vigorously that gardening is beginning to feel more like compliance than an artistic pursuit? Marianne recently wrote an article for Garden Rant that has people talking. With all this well-intentioned ecological advice that we hear, where did the gardener go? And Marianne and I both value ecology highly, but we're wondering if the pendulum has swung too far toward the rules and too far away from the gardener. So we're going to dig into the tension today on the Garden Mixer.
She is Leslie Harris. I'm Marianne Wilburn, and we're digging into tension. I'm excited. This is my jam, baby.
I know. You love it.
It's not just about controversy for controversy's sake, or indeed controversy for controversy's sake. It is just like, okay, enough already, uncle. So we got some heavy topics today, folks. We hope you're going to join us, and we very much hope that you're going to comment to us through comments at thegardenmixer.com. Or on Substack on the Garden Mixer podcast, or you can send a carrier pigeon.
We're good with that.
We're good with that. And let us know how you think about this, because we are truly interested, and we're interested from all points of view, not just our own correct point of view. So
how can our own correct point of view be correct when we actually don't see this exactly the same way, but we're kind of on the same page, and it'll be fun to talk about it.
It is. But what are we drinking?
You're not drinking much because you're practicing Lent, you good girl.
So holy. Do you see this halo here?
There's a halo there. I think I can
That's
have
right.
AI.
What are you drinking?
Put that in. It's called Cuba Libre. I thought freedom was a good place to begin, even if it's a bit of a stretch. This is sort of the nationalistic drink of Cuba, besides it tastes really good. And I thought, oh, well, freedom in the garden. Cuba Libre. I have some Don Papa rum. Let's go. Cheers.
Cheers. I'm just drinking pure Libre. Libre from alcohol.
Libre from the tap.
Okay, so where do we start, Les? Because I know that we do see this differently. Perhaps we should talk about the article itself and what the whole point of doing it was. Send people, no, this is too much.
Silly woman, clear up corner. We have things to do.
Oh, right.
All right. So the pronunciation of arbor vitae, I would wish to absolve you when you spit out the arbor vitae. Vitae can actually be pronounced that way, and you should not be feeling so self-conscious. Most people, it's true, say arborvitae, and that's what spills off my tongue. However, vitae makes you sound a little bit affected, but it's actually not incorrect. So go with it.
Is it like affected, though? Is it affected if
no, it just sounds
doing
affected.
It?
No,
this
okay.
is the problem.
Yeah,
I'm actually
right.
actively want to change this, so I'm just never saying it again, and it's through you from here on out, folks. So there we go.
And the only other thing I have is that I threw up a little something
in your
real.
Mouth?
That'll come later when I hear your point of view on some of this stuff. I put out a little post on my baby garden and some baby things happening in it. And so early was it that I had not discarded my wreath, although it was, well into March. And I just wanted to let people know that wreath is now gone to the compost pile. The metal is in the basement waiting to be redone next year. I know that people were concerned.
I was actually felt better because mine is still sitting outside. And up until 2 weeks ago, when my son's not prospective new in-laws, but soon to be new in-laws, came to visit, I quickly took it off of the door and threw it in the garden because I didn't want to throw it away or compost it because I want that frame just as much as you do. And it allows me to make a new wreath next year. And if I don't, I'll be staring at a $15 wire frame and taking out the cat o' nine tails and hitting my back.
Yeah, and it goes into a landfill and stuff. I mean, it just takes a few minutes if you disassemble it. What else you have? Oh, Wisteria frost veil? What is that?
Yeah. I was pruning my wisteria a few weeks ago, and at the whole time I was doing it, I'm thinking, and this is my wisteria sinensis, my evil wisteria, which actually we'll talk about this today maybe.
No kidding.
And I'm pruning it, and the whole time I'm thinking about the horrible frost of April 24th last year, where it dropped hard and sudden and not just like a little freeze, and all of those beautiful fat little caterpillars turned brown, and there were a lot of them. I think I counted 107. I'm not sure, 96? It was burned in my brain for a while. So, when you're pruning again, you're thinking, "What's the point of this?" As you're pruning, even though you know the shrub has to be pruned. But as I'm going through photos last year, I remembered that this is a really good reason, if you needed one, to grow the American frutescens, because that gives you a bloom later in the season. It's usually blooming sort of end of May, beginning of June, mid May, end of May, but it's blooming with leaves. And so you don't have, unless you're in a really, really cold part of the world, you're not going to have as much worry. I've never ever experienced wisteria do that before.
Mm.
So it was just, everything, the stars were aligned in the wrong way. So just a little shout out for Wisteria frutescens and the various cultivars therein, and try a little of both. Well, I suppose I'm not supposed to say try a little of both, only grow the native, which we're going to talk about in just a few moments.
Sounds like the native might be a good choice here because of what you said, as opposed
Yeah.
to any guilt. We will be talking about this. What else do we have for clear up?
I wanted to just admit after listening to the pruning podcast that I did have a pruning fail that I had completely erased from my mind because it was in somebody else's garden.
Ah,
And I was helping another person with their garden before a party. It was completely overrun with multiflora rose and all sorts of stuff. And it was literally a jungle. And he came out and said he pulled this one cane of this rose out, between all these others, and said, "I just want to make sure that that gets saved." And oh, no problem, I'll take care of that. And then I went into the fog of war, and there was blood in my eyes, and I just started pruning, all this multiflora, and I stepped back and went, "Oh, where's that cane?" Then I had to go in and admit that the one thing he'd shown me was probably the first thing I cut. So that's my pruning fail, my big pruning fail that was really filled with shame, and,
usually, you
uh
you were saying that if it's filled with shame, you will remember it. So you've done a great job of just putting the, stiff
I
arming that
have,
and just
yeah,
putting it in the
yeah, but it
past.
did
So
come up. Yeah.
anything else?
Wanted to chat about Arantha seeds real quick because we've had this in the chat for Substack, and uh, Aranthus hymalis, which is the winter aconite, these little pretty yellow flowers that by now are done. You can't see the flowers anymore.
Depending on where
And
you live.
the foliage, yes, depending on where you live, but probably um, and the foliage is starting to die back. But what is happening is the plant is setting seeds. And we had some questions about, well, how do I know and where do I get them and should I use them? In my experience, throwing seeds of Aranthus is far superior to getting plants in the green. It's just less fraught. And it does take 3 years, but you start with a little tiny germination that first year when the other ones are starting to bloom, when your old ones are blooming. And then you have a second year where it's a little bit bigger of a one stalk with a little rough. And then the third year, you've got a bloom. So you're liable to forget you even threw the seed. What you need to do is just keep an eye on those little roughs, and they are going to offer those seeds to you on little pod plates. They're going to
Oh,
be sort of
you mean
tawny
the
brown.
choir boy's collar? That
Yes, the choir boy's collar, and there's going to be, like, I think it's about 5, like a little hand, little 5 little pods, and each one will open up with those pods when they're ready, and they'll just sort of sit there. Now with wind and rain and all that sort of stuff, they'll just fall where they are, but they are very easy to stick your hand underneath them and tap it, and seeds in hand, and then just go and throw them somewhere they're not going to be disturbed, because that's the difficulty with Aranthus, because it goes down to the ground or underneath the ground, and you're digging all your perennials in, you can disturb it, it will disappear. So this is a plant that you want to maybe throw under some of your deciduous trees where you're not going to do too much gardening, or an area that you just can't bear to deal with ever.
It's not really a garden plant, it's a plant that you can have in your garden in a woodland setting, and that's a great way to propagate it.
I have some along, my polygonatum, the, variegated Solomon seal. So it's all along in there, and
Oh,
if
nice.
I have taken out those old stems in time before it starts to bloom, it's a really pretty thing. So the 2 of them are competing but not competing. They're doing well together.
Alright. We're so clear. We're so clear on that and many other things.
Cleared up. So I wanted to start off. Leslie's going to interrogate me. We're going to go back and forth. There's going to be blood, knife fight.
Just a little bit.
But I wanted to start off on the why. Why did I write this article, which was more of an essay and really could be the chapter of a book? It was that long. But it really documented what I had seen as the ecological gardening movement over the last 15 years in this country, and how the ecological part of it has really started to subsume the gardening part of it. And that gardeners are starting to lose their voice to the ecologists, and that it doesn't seem like it's as objective as it could be. Now, why do I care? I care because there are a lot of people who are put off of gardening when there are too many rules. And it really does start to feel now like there are too many rules. And here was a commenter from Substack, where the article was also posted, not just on Garden Rant, that says, if the controversy is too loud and the barriers to entry are too great, many people just don't ever start gardening or cooking or pet ownership or whatever, because it all seems too hard. And if they do it wrong, the social condemnation can be pretty fierce. And that was by Rufian on Substack. Now, that social condemnation, when you and I were first gardening, would have maybe been in our master gardener circles or horticultural circles. Now it's social media, and it is vicious. Speaking as someone who has been eviscerated, even without my knowledge, I'm probably being eviscerated as we speak. But I saw one evisceration. It was pretty amazing.
Mm. And that
So
hurts. I would say that my first, counterpunch to this, and it's not like I disagree, being mean on Substack or any other social media platform, being negative about gardening, it's not nice. But I sort of equate the people who do that to, I don't know, those guys who are sitting in their mother's basement putting out Twitter things anonymously. I just don't I don't have any time for them. I don't have any ears for them, and therefore they cannot hurt me. And I don't wanna discourage any gardening, but I feel like the native plant movement has encouraged a lot of people with gardening. But we're gonna go into that compliance thing, like, how strict do you have to be? In my mind, it's easy for me. I'm a simple soul. I'm like, "I'm gonna grow what I wanna grow, and I'm gonna try to look at the news to see how I can be responsible." But this person, Rufian, is right. It's correct. If we're shutting down anybody, that's not good because gardening is fabulous. And I'm hopeful that most people would look at it like, isn't the truth somewhere in between, and just go ahead and give it a go and grow some tomatoes or peonies or whatever they want to grow and keep their eye on, maybe the chemicals that they put in their yard. And hopefully they're not doing that. I mean, I just feel like it could be simpler. But I also hear what you're saying, and nobody should be shot down for just wanting to do it their way.
you know that we have different personalities and we approach
Yes,
life
we
very
do.
differently. And I
And
think
that,
both of us,
listener, is the magic of this podcast.
the magic behind Garden Mixer. Um, I think that we both sort of feel like, well, I feel this way. Most people feel this way. Most people, you probably feel like most people are easygoing. I think that most people are easily shamed. And that's probably because I am easily shamed. And I feel their pain, literally, as long as it's something that I feel that I need to feel shame about. That's the key with this one. If I have just cut my friend's rose cane to the ground, and I've done that after being told not to, I'm going to feel shame quite justifiably. Or if I'm on the road and I throw my milk carton out on the side of the road, I'm going to feel shame. It's just not going to happen. If it accidentally flies out of the car, I'm going to be beating myself up, and goes down a ravine and I can't get it. I'll be beating myself up for days, right? Because I justifiably do feel a lot of shame there. And that's my personality. And I'm very analytical with things. But you have a very different approach to life that I wish I had. And I know that there are many people like me who are maybe not as opinionated, who maybe don't have access to as many sources or won't naturally question, who can just be cowed by this. And it's on their behalf that I feel like I need to say something and I need to talk about inconsistencies. And I also feel like, you know what, we've given this a lot of time and we've been really nice about this. And we've tried to play by these rules, but enough is enough with the you must. And I was interviewed by a young journalist, oh gosh, 6, 7 months ago. She'd interviewed me before, and I knew she had a garden. It was about something unrelated. And I asked her how her garden was going before we got started with her questions. And she said, it's going pretty okay. I thought it was going better than it is, but I'm finding out I'm growing the wrong plants. And it's she's 30, 31 maybe, a new gardener. And I said, "What do you mean you're growing the wrong plants?" And she said, "Well, I interviewed X from X, which was a large organization that should bloody well know better. And she told me that if I grew a non-native plant, I might as well be growing a plastic plant."
I've
And
heard
she
that
didn't.
before too. It is it is the most ridiculous thing. It makes 0 sense growing any plant. I mean, we can talk about the ones that are harmful, but and actually the science behind that, but that is just so sad to hear. That would
Yeah.
drive me crazy too.
And she wasn't saying it as, "So what do you think?" She was just sort of like, "Well, this is what it is, and I really thought I liked those daylilies, but I guess I better not like them." And I just saw that whole motivation and everything going down, and I just wanna come out punching, because this science and the science, what I always call the science TM, you know, science TM, it's the weapon of science where you throw this, well, science says, well, yeah. So it just makes me come out very upset when I see that it is affecting other people in that way. Too many rules, and people just say, "Hey, I'm just going to mow the lawn. I thought I liked those plants, but I'm not going to. And hey, I don't actually like that all native perennial bed in the front of my neighbor's house, and that's not what I want. So let's just put the lawn in."
Yeah. So your article that you wrote for Garden Rant was called "In Defense of the Gardener," correct?
In defense of the gardener's voice.
In defense of the gardener's voice, like, where did this gardener go, and why is it that we have to be ecologists, or we are, and I feel that, I don't feel a lot. I'm a duck letting the
I feel
waters let
nothing.
that. I feel nothing.
I'm
I
up
don't
here at
spend a lot of
10,000 feet looking
yeah,
down at you little people
yeah,
and wondering.
just or I'm down there with the dirt in my fingernails and having a hell of a good time.
Yeah.
That's more like it, and so it argues that, that gardening culture is shifting away from the gardener's creative voice. But everything that I see about gardens that are worth going to, public gardens, botanical gardens, gardens on, I mean, I guess I should say it, the social media, those are the beautiful gardens, and they have lots of different plants in them. Somebody might say grown responsibly, and I reject that grown responsibly thing. They're just grown. We're gardening here. We're growing plants. You feel like the gardener is being pushed out of the conversation. I feel like environmental qualities of gardening have their values, and I know you feel that way too. You just feel like it's coming on too strong?
Yeah, I do because I am all for an ecological approach to gardening because it's going to make me a better gardener. It's going to make my garden more alive. It's going to make it breathe joy, excitement. It's just going to be better if I can use those tips and tricks from the ecologist.
Oh, no. You said that.
I just said that. Well, there goes the throw up in the mouth. But I feel that way. We were both at Dixter and up, and I that's what they're about. That biodiversity audit that was done 3, 4 years ago showed that the incredible diversity of insect species, bird species, and floral species in the garden, and what an incredible, beautiful mix, soupy mix that was. There's been one done at Chanticleer, which we can talk about at some point in the future here, that shows similar levels of great biodiversity, and in some species, even a little more than at Mount Cuba, which was really fascinating. Which is a
It's a native gardening center, and they do lots of,
Yeah.
they actually do a lot of, trials with native plants, and they sometimes compare them to nativars, cultivars. So, for instance, Fox paniculata. Well, if you're gonna take that and make it a cultivar out of it, native, strong line native person might say, "That ain't Fox paniculata, that is not the native plant." And guess who's getting more attention from the pollinators in the garden? So, Mount Cuba Center is doing a lot of good research in that way, and I think that, the people who are hardline on this might not wanna pay attention to it. It might not interest them that way. I don't know.
I can't speak for them, and neither can they speak for me, I think is the point here. The premise for me and for you, I think, is that we both use native plants in our landscapes.
Oh, yeah.
There are many that we adore. I don't, and at the same time, I don't even wanna have to say that because it's sort of like saying, "In order to discuss this, I have to give you my credentials that I love native plants and I use native plants." I don't need to do that, and I shouldn't have to. But unfortunately, it's come to a place where if you push back on this orthodoxy, that it is native plants are the way, they are life, and alien plants are death, and ecological collapse, which is what Dr. Talamy says in either Bringing Nature Home or I think it's in Bringing Nature Home. If you embrace that completely, then if you're growing a non-native plant, you're doing something wrong, and that's the problem here.
So Talamy is such a great example to talk about. I'm a fan. This is an entomologist at the University of Delaware. He speaks very eloquently and has some really good ideas about how to enjoy your garden ecologically. He does put some numbers, some compliance rules on it, which is too bad because if that turns anybody off, number one reason why that's too bad. For me, it just encourages me. Like, wow, I love that native plant. One of the first, two of the first plants that I got here were solidago and Trichum. I'm like, because I missed that activity in the fall and it was fall. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get those and sticking them right in between these Asian azaleas, which are brown and dying. Um, and they will prop them up. And I was very happy. So I am a fan of Doug Tallamy simply because he's got this very simple message of, just give it a try, just look around. What I hear from that guy is these are some really good plants, and oak tree is a wonderful thing. He wrote an entire book on the life cycle of an oak tree, and there's some really great Lepidoptera that have such wonderful homes there. There are also other trees that support a lot of caterpillars. I want bugs in my yard. I want birds in my yard, and I'm very happy to not have chemicals in my yard. For me, his message is as simple as that. But for you, and therefore probably for others, it's more hardline and more in your face and less or more, "What do I have to do?"
And I don't think it's necessarily that we're just taking the wrong thing. I mean, he instructs people with these things, proselytize. He uses the word proselytize a little bit. he says that, that natives are life and alien plants are not. And I don't want to say death because that seems, but I think it actually is. I put it in my article. So read the article and you can see everything that was quoted there. And I think that his demeanor is very gentle. And
It
I've
is.
listened to him talk a couple times. I've had my book signed by him. And I've watched the sycophantery. Is that the right word? The sort of obsequious, "Hello, Doctor, tell me, thank you for saving the world," in front of me, and had him go, "Oh, well, it's just a book," and, and write the book,
Right.
"But no, you're saving the world," and
He
think,
can't
"Oh
help
my
that, Marianne.
god."
He can't help what they're saying to him.
Yes and no. He can't help that person. Who can? But
Nobody.
yeah, nobody. But that person is going to go off and proselytize and push. And that's the person you're going to meet in your master gardener meeting when you raise your hand and say, "Oh, I've got a good plant for a winter garden, a hellebore." And they turn around and go,
Right.
"We really shouldn't." This has happened to me. "We really shouldn't be pushing hellebores. I think it's a bit problematic. They're not native, they're poisonous." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So yeah, Doug Tallamy is not responsible for that guy. But when you push somebody, when you hand to them, a couple books worth of factoids and instructions. And, it doesn't mean that your neighbor's a bad person for not having native plants, but they may not be as knowledgeable as you. What does that set somebody up? That's from the book. What does that set somebody up to do? I am better because I know and they don't.
Oh,
And you
totally
see?
disagree with you here.
Yeah.
Totally disagree with you.
Okay.
I
Okay.
just I
Bring
just
it
feel
on,
like
Harris.
he's just full of good suggestions that I'm gonna take or leave as suits me. I am the person who read every baby book until I found the one that said, "Yes, you can let the child cry itself to sleep." I'm like, "We're going with this guy." I mean, I am not gonna be told what to do. I am going to follow encouragement and suggestions, and the fact that we know that the chemicals that you put on your lawn do not stay on your lawn, and if you were to simply turn off some nighttime lights or make them yellow bulbs, that you'd lose a lot few insects to instant death. I mean, it's just
Mhm.
death by a thousand cuts, and you can, just like I don't like to put my garbage in the garbage, you can just take a few of those cuts away from your yard. Now, earlier today, when we were discussing how to duke it out tonight, you had this great line about where, and I can't remember if you read it or you came up with it. Oh my God, Homegrown National Park, you're polishing the silver while the Titanic's going
Oh, it
down. Like,
it
what?
wasn't me. That was the wonderful words of James Hitchmo, from University of Sheffield, Professor Emeritus of Horticultural Ecology there. One of the leading lights, he and Nigel Dunn at Sheffield University, their horticultural ecology department has really pushed this expansive use of uh, ecology in horticulture, especially in regards to urban planting. Thomas Christopher had him on the Growing Greener podcast recently, to his credit, because Thomas Christopher is more of a natives guy and has very much shown that in his interviewing of past guests. And he attended a lecture that James Hitchmo gave, who said some much more British things about the native non native debate. And he wanted to interview him. And full kudos to him for that, for being challenged and sort of facing it. Is somewhere in this interview, Dr. Hitchmo says, "Well, the big thing, the elephant in the room is industrial agriculture. And, that's the thing we're not dealing with. If we want to look at these species decline and insect decline and bird decline, we need to be doing that because it feels more like we're polishing the silver as the Titanic sinks." And I was like, Right on. Yes. I mean, this is one of the points that I brought up in my essay. And the fact that I felt that Doug Tallamy's books, even though they said, yes, agriculture is bad, yes, development's bad, but let's have gardeners solve it, which then
Oh,
went out to the public. Oh, yes, Leslie. Oh, yes. You
no.
need to go back. Look, would you please look at, okay, this is bringing nature home.
I've read
Do
it
you
2
know
times.
okay,
I
do
do
you
not have
have
any
as many
sticky
notes in
notes
that?
in it. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. People
The
who aren't on
sticky notes
YouTube,
is yeah.
she's
Like
memorized it.
can you see my notes in the margins everywhere? And it's not just like, "This is BS," or anything like that. It's actual, "What about this and the" yeah, and the other one, "This is bringing nature home, but nature's best hope," looks very similar.
And Nature's Best Hope is the one, just in case you are a little bit of a Doug Tallamy fan,
Yeah.
because he's trying something, and that's basically why I like what he has to say, because I wanna improve my game if I can, if it makes sense. In Nature's Best Hope, he suggests, Marianne would say he stipulates, that
I'm feeling faint.
that human beings are nature's best hope, and they are, because we're the ones running the show here, and just the idea that, there are what is it?
No, he's not saying that. Stop that. He's
Wait,
saying
I will finish my point, and you will hush for a moment. Just that if every person who had some yard, even if you're not a gardener, just sort of be aware that, just silly little things like turning your lights off at night. And, oh, by the way, the mosquito fogger guy, that's not just killing mosquitoes. And, the chemicals that you're putting down, they're not staying on your yard. So little simple things like that, little improvements that you can make. I cannot not support that. I think it's great to get the word out to people for informational purposes, to do their little bit, like compost that we talked about a couple weeks ago.
I agree with that, but I think that nature's best hope is a very anthrocentric title because it's not saying that human beings are the best hope. It's that our gardens, our yards, our what we do in those yards is literally nature's best hope. And no, I disagree with that. I think nature's best hope is if we stop spraying agricultural fields with dicamba and 2,4-D and glyphosate every spring and every fall. And we're doing this whole scale. So, no, I don't think that the gardener is nature's best hope. I think that that sounds great and it's a good way to sell a book. And you know what? His newest book is Saving Nature with Your Yard. So, I mean, this is not just in my fevered imagination.
No,
This
no, no.
is
But privately owned land is a huge portion of the United States. And if each person who owns privately owned land can help out a little bit, it's not a bad thing.
we can't even get people to grow a little small tree in most of their yards. The idea that
I
we could
agree.
get everybody to do that without like authoritarian measures is beyond aspirational.
How does this differ from suggesting that people don't put their garbage in the garbage?
Um, I think that it is different because the people who follow Ptolemy's all of his work have been given the instructions to proselytize and to believe in what they have. It's in the book, girl.
I've read the books. I've had him on my podcast twice before it became our podcast. I think what he's doing is valuable, and I don't feel any judgment or being yelled at. I just feel like I'm reading good suggestions. And I am certainly not being told to proselytize. I would never.
Well, you just didn't read it.
Well, then I skipped that part. Same way I skipped the part about how you should really rock the baby to sleep. I'm not doing that. Next on our carefully organized outlines, it says a growing divide appears between ecological restoration and horticultural practice, but it should be between Marianne Wilburn and Leslie Harris. A growing divide.
We're
That we
done by the
both
end of this. We're done. I'm out of
We're
here. This
done.
is
No more
total
podcasts.
BS.
So we are both gardeners, and we both value ecology. And but what we really love to do is to make our land look beautiful with cool plants that make us happy, and propagation and seed starting. Well, me not so much, but she's doing that, cheering her on. And so that idea that you have to be an ecologist to be a gardener, yeah, I'm not for that. I'm against. What do you think?
Overall, the feeling that we should be doing this for a higher reason, not for ourselves. And as long as we're allowed, I think that there's 100% room to do both. Dixter shows
Agreed.
us, well, shows us that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of gardens that are incredibly buzzing with life. I remember when I was very first gardening and my little boy was about 6 years old, and I had a long walkway of lavender, and there were so many bees on it, different types of bees in the summertime when it was in full bloom. And he said, "This is the land of Beetopia." And I remember that in my head. And you know, that would have been possible with a different plant, obviously, but it was lavender, not
Not native.
native.
Can I tell I have something similar. You remember my front yard at the old garden was just full of a few shrubs for sure, but a lot of perennials. Every August, the very loudest part walking down from the front house to the truck, the loudest part, I'm like, "Ooh, something's really happening here. Where am I going to follow this big buzz noise?" Was the Japanese anemone. Mhm. Biggest noise.
Yes, and that reminds me of a story of standing in front of a huge stand of Andrea Atkinson, white, beautiful Japanese anemone with a master gardener group, and a woman standing there with me saying, "Gosh, that's beautiful," and me saying, "That's beautiful. There's nothing else blooming in this entire yard. That's it." And she looks at it, and I look at it, and then she says, "What a shame it's not native," and turns around and goes like, and I thought, "What the hell are you talking about?" Like, who, what? You are witnessing, this life and this buzz around this plant. It's just not the right life and the right buzz or the right plant, and, that's micromanagement on a level I'm just not comfortable with. We stop seeing adaptations, and that's really, really important. We stop seeing adaptations. We
Yeah.
stop seeing how some of these plants are helping us, when
Mhm.
we're, willfully destroying land to put a road in, and then look, there's butterfly bushes coming up around that road. Certainly, this is true in the UK where you've got them all along the train tracks. Well, that's pretty tough soil. Those are pretty tough conditions. And here is nature saying, "Ah, I'm
Yeah.
coming up."
Something, just anything, and to feed the pollinators, but the word out on that is, and of course, I don't understand the science, is like, "Oh, yeah, they'll attract pollinators," but it's like giving them Krispy Kreme donuts. This is not what they're supposed to be eating.
That has been debunked. Nectar is nectar.
Good. Good, good, good.
Yeah,
Glad to hear it.
gosh, who was it? A ecologist that I trust. Who the heck told me that? And
Clear
just
up corner, baby. It's
yeah,
coming.
clear up corner. We're gonna have to figure that one out. Very, very slight differences in nectar. Now, there's differences in pollen, certainly, but after a while of feeding on these plants of nectar and
Are they
not
gonna get diabetes?
the
I'm s I'm worried. I'm so worried.
they're
Type
gonna get
2, oh god.
diabetes. And I mean, and folks, we're talking about this right now on a very superficial level because Leslie will
Is
honestly not
Leslie.
let me talk to all on this. Okay,
She's
look at
done
this stuff.
papers and
All right,
research. I'm like,
YouTubers.
"Girl,
I've been rustling these papers, desperate to talk about them, and she's just,
if you make it funny, and concise, we'll consider your papers, Mrs. Wilburn."
That's right. There's just no point. But truly, go to the article because I took some time over it, and what my message was charting the progression of this movement and how it sort of has left gardeners out in the dark and how it has made it very, very difficult to speak up against it. Where you can stop an argument just by saying, "Well, Ptolemy says."
Alright, so I wanna hear about my not hero, because only one person is my hero, and he's upstairs, I hope making me dinner. But my but somebody that I admire for putting the effort into into ecology and getting the word out, I want to hear what you found out that might not be such great news if you're a dyed-in-the-wool Talamy fan.
Yeah, this particular study, this was done by his research assistant, at least 10 years ago, and it was, not a meta study, but it was looking at all of the research over the years, or rather the written references to where pollinators had actually been observed on specific genera.
Okay.
So, and it was only done by genus. It was not done on the species level. So, if an insect was on an oak that wasn't a native oak, it was just classified as oak. That's how the data were gathered.
Okay.
But for the purposes of putting this together and showing how many, and this was Lepidoptera and species.
Caterpillars.
I bet you so many people now, because of Dactylamia, are familiar with the word Lepidoptera. So that's a good thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, for the purposes of this study, if the genus had both native and non-native species in it, then it was classified as native. So if it didn't matter that they could have been seen on a non-native oak or a non-native poplar or a non-native hawthorn, it was classified as native. The only thing that was classified as non-native is those genera that don't have native species in the United States. And so the data were very cloudy.
Okay.
So, this researcher ecologist who I was just speaking with yesterday, and he's going to be writing up something for Garden Rant, and really looking forward to that, showing how data can be moved around to tell a different story. Said that if you're saying how fantastic these plants are for our native pollinators and even for non-native pollinators, you have to give the contributions of the non-native species within that genus. You can't just say, oh, well, there's native and non-native species in this genus, so we'll just call it native genus. Am I making myself?
Yeah, can I see if I can,
Yeah.
put this into, let's see. The
Hmm.
study was done to show the good, and yet there might have been a bad, what they're saying is bad because it's not native, mixed in with the study? Is that what I'm
Oh,
hearing?
there was. There absolutely was, and
Okay.
it's not necessarily bad because the majority of the pollinators could have been found on the non-native species. But because there are native species in that genus, the whole thing is termed a native.
Gotcha.
And that's the difficulty. That's sort of, that's not good. And in fact, this ecologist and really, really nice guy, and his name is Nathan Lamstrom, and he's a garden ecologist up in Rhode Island. He's saying, if we do it by that reckoning, the opposite. You could do the opposite. You could say, well, there's native and non-native species in this genus, and so let's call this a non-native genus, right? You could do it that way too, and he actually works the data a little bit differently to show what is possible if you look at it that way. For instance, he talks about barberries, which is like the hated barberry, right? We all hate barberry, but in this study, and he does link to the associated data set, which is extensive, a lot of research done. Barberry had insects on it and Lepidoptera on it, and yet there is only one very rare native barberry species.
So does that say that the pollinators are adapting
It means that pollinators are probably on the non-native barberry. Yeah,
or
probably
adapting?
they were observed there and adapting. Yeah.
And I'd love to talk about that when we clash, that's not the right word, but when we differ on this topic, oh, yeah, it's like it's like a
Two
tornado and a
great
volcano.
houses.
Whoa! Um, you point out something that is it's so sensible, which makes me wonder, do I know her? No, just the fact that it's like, did your people come over on the Mayflower, or did they come over last week? And are you native or are you not? And holy cow. I mean, we've only been on this earth for a speck of time. And to say that these things are happening so quickly, and they might be within our lifetime, but our lifetime is nothing.
I think we are realizing that the time it's taking for some insects and birds and et cetera to adapt is a little quicker than we thought, as more time goes by. And well, at least some people are realizing that, but others don't
Others
want
are
to
like,
realize that.
no, no, no.
And that's usually, I think you and I were talking about this a couple days ago when you were driving home, and you were saying, it's just too quick. And that's what I hear a lot. Well, the pace of change is just too fast. And that sort of is supposed to stop the argument as well. Like it stops the discussion. It's too fast. Humans are evil. But I always go back to this in my head that it may be faster than it was before we had planes, trains, and automobiles. But we are not aliens on this planet. Those are our innovations, and we're moving things around. That's how we're evolving. And also, a meteor hitting the Earth 65 million years ago is pretty damn fast. The
It's going to
amount
move some
of
things around.
Yeah, it
Boom.
moved some things around and it killed a lot of things. Big, big, big extinction of a lot of species. It happened very, very fast. The planet is still here. And that's why sort of the anthropomorphic savior of, we have to save nature, save the planet. I'm like, no. Perhaps us, perhaps to feed the amount of people that we have on the earth, we need to look at those things. But stop saying that this Nandina is destroying the planet because I've seen that too.
It's pretty simplistic. Would you agree with the studies that Talamy and others point out that we are losing insects? And do you see that as a concern?
100%. And it is a concern. Those studies are real. You can't argue with them. I'm sure there's little bits and pieces here and there, but yes, 100%. And they are, that's what the rest of the world is built upon, is that insect life. I don't put that at the feet of, my neighbor growing a hydrangea macrophylla.
Of course
I
not.
put that No, of course not, but I put that at the feet of industrial agriculture and let's not say industrial agriculture. That's wrong. The chemical dependent crops that we leaned into, glyphosate, Roundup Ready crops that we leaned into in the 90s. It's common sense. It is common sense when we're doing this tens of millions of acres across the United States, that this is a problem, that insects are being wiped out, that birds are consequently being wiped out, that soil is suffering.
So all those things that you just said can make you feel just a little bit better if you're controlling what you can control in your own garden. And that's the way I look at this. You can hang your clothes out on the line because you don't want to use the dryer. You can put the garbage in the composter if you don't want to put garbage in garbage. You can't change everything, but you can do what you want to do. And so the native hardliners who are going to give you a hard time about not doing it all, like, oh my God, you're growing a rose. This is terrible. I'm not listening to them. I'm just not.
And that is so incredibly healthy, and I wish I had your brain. I it is. It's extremely healthy. You look at that and say, "In my little world, I'm going to, hang my clothes on the line." Well, you're not gonna do that.
No, I'm
But
not.
I'm good. Yeah, I know. I'm gonna have a compost pile. I'm going to do my part to make the world better, and that is fantastic. The problem comes when you decide, I'm going to do my part by making everybody else make the world a better place. Because if I don't make them do what I think needs to be done, then everything's going to hell in a handbasket. Nobody's following the rules. This is existential. We've got to, as Rebecca McMacken says in her TED Talk, we have to existentially multitask. This is,
Sounds complicated.
it sounds very complicated. So the way that you're dealing with that, the message that you took away from Talamy's books is a really good one and very, very healthy. And I think that's great. But it's not the message that a lot of people got. that a lot of people want to spread. I mean, it's like any type of religion, and you spread it and it turns into something other. At the end of the day, Christ said, should we just all be nice to one another? you know?
But that's not
So,
that's not the way some
yeah,
people
not
treat that topic.
burn those damn Catholics at the stake, right? Or the
Yeah, yeah.
Protestants, things
Yeah.
change and we get too rigid in that because I think it's just the human condition.
Yeah.
So I feel that speaking up about it helps to empower others who are not as healthily brained as you are and are feeling like they're tired, and those who are feeling like me, they're just tired of fighting, and they're also being tired of being put into a category of a anti-native, anti-ecology, anti-science, all of these things. Like, what are you talking about?
We're not gonna solve everything here. I think we've aired some really good points. I enjoyed the conversation, and the fact that I won the argument.
What about all my papers? Look, there's this one. I didn't talk about this one. This is a study in the Netherlands.
Should we just move on to damn, I wish I planted that? Yes, everybody say yes.
Damn.
We have a few housekeeping, some fun comments. Jill R. Winburn commented on our compost episode on YouTube. I just have to read this one because it made me feel so much better. I love the validation. She also tried bokashi, which is the one that almost drove my husband out of the house permanently. I think we talked about that. And she took it further. She was thinking that people might think that she had rotting corpses in her house. Bokashi, Amanda, who does it, Jill and I don't know how it's done, but it made me feel better that maybe you don't do that if you don't have to.
And we have got some new mixers. I have been so bad about putting new mixers on the show notes, links, and laughs. But forgive me. I'm feeling shame right there. Here's some new ones. We've got Sally Hall. We've got Anne Fancook. I hope that's correct.
Sounds great.
Susan Lettuce and Jean Henneberry. And welcome to the mix. And you are going to be getting our every other podcast, our one more sip for the very thirsty. We're going to talk about one topic in there, have a lot of fun, be part of the chat, which is. Are you enjoying the chat, Leslie? You're finally starting to participate.
I'm finally
in the
starting.
chat.
Yes, I am very much enjoying the chat. And if you're wondering what our next topic is on that, and if you want to get to it, it's on Substack. And we're talking about spring ephemerals for another 20 minutes after this podcast is over, and that will be put out on Substack. And then you can also find a link to the videos of those episodes on YouTube. But it's secret. It's only for one more sip, people. It's for our committed community.
Yeah, I don't know how long that's going to last, huh?
What do you mean?
Hackers got a hack. I'm sure our little silly little.
And that's where,
Yeah.
oh my God, I have to get into those episodes. Dear Fence and Les Friend, I have a slight update on my new front garden. It is so small that you might weep, but I finally heard from my landscaper, and he put together a plan that I had to then clean up in both chat and Canva, which I'm not very good at. And I am going to be ready to bring the plan to committee in a month. Isn't this so sad and absolutely galactically sloth-like in its moving forward? But someday, gardeners, I will not have a front lawn. I will have a garden. What's up with the deer and non-deer in your garden?
Here's my little update. Was today when I looked out on the lawn or some of the grass and realized that my crocus were up and they hadn't been beheaded by deer. And so I just suddenly realized today, oh my gosh, I can plant more crocus seed, because I had even come off of the seed idea. And then I thought, no, why? Because the deer will come along and eat them. So so that's my deer update is no deer.
More joy.
So exciting. And I bought a lilac the other day. I haven't bought a lilac in 13 years and I may regret it. Lilacs can be a little awkward and funny, but so am I.
Well, back to damn, I wish I had planted that. This is the part of the show where we give you a plant that's looking good in the garden at the time of the drop of this episode, which I
That's a
believe
lot of
is,
prepositions.
I know, so many prepositions. Love the prepositions. Late March. And we both have some good ones. And would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm going to throw a bulb out there that you may not know about. A lot of people use fritillaries in their garden, little snakes-haired fritillaries in the lawn, and they're purple with a little checkerboard on there. That's how you know it's a frit. This fritillary is a pass-along plant, was a pass-along plant to me, and a true dam I wish I planted that, where I looked at it in a friend's garden in Charlotte, Lindy Wilson, and went, "Damn, I want that." And she gave me a little bit of it, and it is Fritillaria thunbergii. And this is a fritillaria that isn't just the one little snake's head. It comes up as about an 15 to 18-inch clump, has those same little nodding heads, and we'll put pictures on YouTube and on the Substack notes for you. But it's a sort of a creamy color, and on the inside, you have that checkerboarding. It is hardy to zones 6 to 8. So I'm sorry about that. I'll try and redeem myself in the spring ephemerals episode. But for those of you who are outside those zones, sorry, Melissa in Nova Scotia. I was thinking about her. Um, it is full sun to part shade, which makes it so great for me because a lot of my areas are more part shade than they are full sun, and it does really well. It multiplies itself, and it is blooming when a lot of different daffodils are blooming. So it just sort of lightens it up. It has a very interesting little tendrils at the end of its leaves that look like they're going to grip onto something. And I was told, or not told, but I read on Phoenix Perennials up in Canada, British Columbia, and I really, really trust Gary there. And he said that those little tendrils actually hook onto other plants to sort of hold it up. I've
Um,
not experienced that because I just have it on its own, but it's a fantastic plant, a pass along, but that you can order as well, Fritillaria thunbergii, and it's highly deer resistant.
Highly deer resistant, as many spring
Yeah,
ephemerals are. I have a question for you. Fritillaria. I love that plant because what other plant has a checkerboard on its petal? It's just so incongruous. The kids
very
love it.
cool.
Like, oh, how can this be checkered? And that is one of the few spring bulbs that actually likes moist soil, which is cool. Have you ever tried to grow the imperial fritillaria?
I have, and I've had mixed success. I don't think that I have grown it well, correctly. They always say with Fritillaria imperialis, this is the crown imperial frit, and it comes up and it looks like this. What would you call it? It's like a
It's
lady's
like,
hat from
yeah,
1870 at a huge fancy party.
it's
It's very hard
gaudy.
to.
It's
It's
very
gaudy.
gaudy and it's
Oranges,
comes in
yellow.
yellow, yeah, and it's almost like, "Oh, wait, is that trying to be a parasol, but it's really tiny?" It's throwing a lot of shade? I don't it's weird.
Right, but the bulb itself, it's quite large, like almost hand large sometimes, and it has an indentation in the middle of it. Now, if you're growing in a wet winter, that indentation underground can hold water and it can rot. So they always say to put it on its side when you plant it, and it'll figure its way up. Well, it also rights itself over time, so it's
Oh,
much better idea if you give that bulb, like a higher spot, a little bit better drainage in the soil, than just trying to put it on its side. It has the most incredible scent, doesn't it? It's
okay, so you're talking to somebody who has only had these results, the following results, with the imperial fritillaria, and that is abject failure. Like, nothing came up. Nothing came up. Nothing came up. Does it have a good scent?
No, it has a scent that is like a musky. I always think of it as a foxy scent, and I don't know why I think of it that way. I must have read it once a long time ago because I don't go around sniffing foxes. But if I had to sniff a fox, I would think that it would smell like this. It's a very musky, musky smell. If
It's
you want
tall
that.
too, right? 2, 3 feet?
What's that?
2, 3 feet tall. Yeah, it's a big one.
So, yeah, 2.5 feet sounds
Yeah,
about right.
yeah.
But full sun for this one because if it's in slight shade, it's gonna reach. Unlike Fritillaria thunbergii.
which I
And
can't wait
that
to
is
see
all.
photographs of because I have never even heard of this plant. So I'm
Bring
learning
me some
something new
bulbs.
here.
What are you doing?
Celandine poppy. So this is the Stylophorum defilum, and this is a really cute little, well, not little, it's kinda chunky, but kind of feathery. It's about 1.5 feet tall, maybe 1 foot wide, zones 5 through 9, and it has, it's in the poppy family. It blooms for me in late March or early April, and it has this beautiful kind of medium green foliage that shoots out these little yellow poppies. They're sort of golden, yellowy, goldy. The first time I ever saw it was in a friend's woodland garden, and of course I snagged some. And I was growing it successfully in my old garden on Minor Road, in between hydrangea before they had leafed out, in between hosta before they had completely unfurled, in between ferns. So it's a real
Mhm.
woodland type of look. If you were to grow it in a garden bed, you might get a little sad because it's exuberant and it's spreading, through seeds, I think mostly. Does it spread? It becomes chunkier plant, but I think it really self-sows.
I grow it, and I don't think that it spreads stoloniferously.
It's e e
I think it's just by seed. I
okay.
could be wrong.
Good combination is, with Camassia because some of the blooms aren't, like, all at once, like, "Oh, these are daffodils," and then they're done. They're gonna throw out some blooms earlier and later, and Camassia is another one of those plants that loves a moist, humusy woodland soil, and that's like a tall blue thing coming up above the shorter yellow thing, so that's just a really good combination. If the foliage becomes tatty, you can take it down early and it won't hurt the plant. It'll just be like, "Yeah, we're gonna come back next year. I was gonna die off in a few weeks anyway. Why do you have to look at me?" So you can just cut it back or tuck it underneath that fern that it's growing next to. Celandine poppy, Stylophorum defilum, and that
Defile
wait,
them.
defile defile them.
Defile them. Yes. Whatever you have to do to remember something. So I got a question. Do you grow, the camassia with the celandine?
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay, 'cause to me, camassia really need a good amount of light in order to stand up straight.
That is correct. And this was a partial woodland thing. It was down by my, what do you call it? My, fire pit. And so pretty good light coming in there, southern exposure, but tall trees around it. So, yeah, they were a good combination. I love yellow and blue. They look great together.
Now, people can get confused with common names on this one because there's greater celandine, lesser celandine, and this is celandine poppy. One of those is, like, considered a if not invasive, it's considered a native non-native thug, and I can't
Mhm.
remember which one.
The one I'm talking about is taller, and it is native to the, Eastern United States anyway. And
Yeah.
we can confirm that for you next week, our next episode on Clear Up. So
If we're still talking.
I know. This was not the most
I
horticultural of
had
all
papers.
episodes.
I had papers to talk about. It was like there was important stuff.
Don't hurt yourself. Okay, we're gonna move on and just agree to disagree slightly, although we're definitely
Are
on
we
the same
really?
page.
I don't think we're really. It's really
Uh,
we're disagreeing about our brain function, really. And I
yeah,
want yours and you don't understand mine. I mean,
I
that's
don't
pretty
want
much where
yours.
we're
I
yeah.
do not want yours. Complicated, complicated. Thank you, listeners.
We had a great time and hope this gave you something to think about. Please go find that essay on Garden Rant and let us know what you think about it. Comments at thegardenmixer.com, and we will see you next time.